As the daughter-in-law and Marcus's wife, I'll be managing the $5 million life insurance policy your mother left. My wife Vanessa announced this at my mother's funeral reception, her voice cutting through the somber atmosphere like a knife. What she didn't know was that my mother had changed the beneficiary 3 weeks before she died, and I was the only one who knew why. Should I let her keep talking or save her the public humiliation? I'm Marcus Donnelly, 35 years old, and I just buried the most important person in my life. My mother, Catherine Donnelly, passed away at 68 after a brief but brutal battle with pancreatic cancer. She went from diagnosis to death in 4 months, and I still can't process that she's gone. But before I tell you about the funeral disaster, you need to understand my mother and what she meant to me. My dad died when I was 7, a construction accident that left my mother a widow with a young son and $50,000 in debt. She could have remarried for financial security. Plenty of men asked. But instead, she rolled up her sleeves and built something remarkable. She started a small catering business from our kitchen in Boulder, Colorado. I remember being 9 years old, helping her prep vegetables at 5 a.m. before school. "Marcus, baby, we're going to make it," she'd say, exhausted but determined. "This is temporary. I promise." She was right. Within 5 years, Catherine's Cuisine became the go-to catering company for high-end events throughout Colorado. Within 10 years, she owned 3 restaurants. By the time I graduated college, she'd built a food service empire worth $12 million. But she never forgot where she came from. She lived modestly, drove a sensible car, and wore the same jewelry she'd owned since my father's death. "Wealth whispers, Marcus," she'd tell me. "People who need to show off are usually insecure about what they actually have." I learned everything from her: work ethic, humility, integrity. She put me through college without loans, but made me work in her restaurants every summer. "You need to understand what it means to earn something," she'd say while I washed dishes alongside the other staff. She was my hero. When I graduated with a degree in finance, she helped me start my own investment consulting firm. Not with money, with wisdom. Don't take shortcuts, don't compromise your ethics, and always remember that your reputation is worth more than any commission. I built a successful practice following her principles. By 33, I was making $250,000 annually and had earned a reputation as one of Denver's most trustworthy financial advisors. That's when I met Vanessa. She was beautiful, sophisticated, and worked in pharmaceutical sales. We met at a networking event, and she was charming, interested in my work, asking intelligent questions, laughing at my jokes. We dated for 8 months before I introduced her to my mother. I should have noticed how my mother's smile didn't quite reach her eyes that first meeting. How she was polite but reserved. How she asked careful questions about Vanessa's background, her family, her values. After Vanessa left, my mother made tea and sat me down. "Marcus, do you love her?" "I think I do, Mom." "You think, or you know?" I hesitated. "I know." "Why? Don't you like her?" My mother chose her words carefully. "I think you should take your time. There's no rush to get serious." "Mom, I'm 34 years old. When is the right time?" She sighed. "When you're certain. When you know in your bones that this person values you for who you are, not what you can provide." I thought she was being overprotective. Looking back, she saw something I was too infatuated to notice. Vanessa and I got engaged 6 months later. My mother attended the engagement party but seemed subdued. When I asked if something was wrong, she just hugged me and said, "I want you to be happy, sweetheart. That's all I've ever wanted." We got married in a beautiful ceremony at one of my mother's restaurants. Vanessa insisted on an elaborate wedding, $80,000, which I paid for entirely. My mother contributed the venue and catering at cost, but Vanessa complained it wasn't enough. "Your mother's worth millions," she'd hissed during the planning. She could have paid for everything. "My mother built her wealth through hard work," I'd replied. "She doesn't owe us a lavish wedding." Vanessa had smiled tightly and changed the subject, but I noticed how she started referring to my mother's money in conversations. "When we inherit the restaurants," or "once your mother retires, we'll have access to." It made me uncomfortable, but I convinced myself I was being paranoid. The first year of marriage was rocky. Vanessa quit her sales job 3 months in, saying it was too stressful. I supported us financially while she figured out her next move, which apparently involved shopping, spa days, and expensive brunches with friends. When I suggested she return to work, she'd get defensive. "Your mother built a business empire without a husband's income. Why can't you support me while I explore opportunities?" My mother worked 80-hour weeks when she was building that business, I'd counter. She didn't spend her days getting manicures. These arguments became frequent. Vanessa felt I wasn't providing adequately, despite my 6-figure income. She wanted a bigger house, a luxury car, designer clothes. "We need to maintain appearances," she'd say. "Your clients expect a certain lifestyle." My clients respect competence, not conspicuous consumption, I'd reply. My mother noticed the tension. During our weekly dinners, which Vanessa often skipped, claiming headaches, Mom would ask gently, "How are things at home?" "Fine," I'd lie. She'd look at me with those knowing eyes. "Marcus, marriage is hard work, but it shouldn't be a constant struggle. You deserve a partner, not a dependent." 4 months ago, my mother called me with news that shattered my world. "Marcus, I need you to come over." Alone. I drove to her house with a sense of dread. She sat me down in her living room, the same room where she comforted me after my father died, where she'd celebrated my college acceptance, where we'd planned my wedding. "I have pancreatic cancer," she said quietly. "Stage 4. It's aggressive. They're giving me 3 to 6 months." I couldn't breathe. "There has to be treatment. We can try, but the doctors aren't optimistic." She took my hands. "Marcus, I need to get my affairs in order. I need to make sure you're protected." "Protected from what?" She hesitated. "I'm going to be blunt because I don't have time for subtlety anymore. I don't trust Vanessa. I think she married you for financial security, and I think she sees my death as a payday." I wanted to defend my wife, but the words stuck in my throat because deep down, I'd had the same fears. "I have a $5 million life insurance policy," my mother continued. "The beneficiary is currently listed as you, which means if something happens to you, it would pass to Vanessa as your spouse. I'm changing it." "To what?" "I'm establishing a trust. You'll have access to the funds, but they'll be protected from claims by creditors, lawsuits, or—" She paused, "divorce settlements." "Mom, we're not getting divorced." "Maybe not. But I'm not leaving my life's work to someone who sees my son as an ATM." Her voice was firm. "I'm also leaving the restaurants in a trust. You'll have operational control, but the assets are protected. Vanessa can't touch them." I was too devastated by her diagnosis to argue. Over the next 3 weeks, my mother worked with her attorney, Richard Pemberton, to restructure everything. She set up an irrevocable trust with me as the beneficiary and trustee. The insurance policy, the restaurants, her personal assets, all protected. She made me promise not to tell Vanessa about the changes. "Let's see how she handles my death," Mom said grimly. "Her reaction will tell you everything you need to know about her character." Those 3 weeks turned into 4 months of hell. Chemotherapy ravaged my mother's body but barely touched the cancer. She withered from a vibrant 140 pounds to under 90. Watching her suffer was unbearable. Vanessa barely visited. She'd make excuses, "Hospitals depress me," or "I don't want to see her like this." When she did visit, she'd stay for 10 minutes, looking uncomfortable and checking her phone. My mother noticed. Even through her pain medication fog, she'd squeeze my hand and whisper, "I'm sorry, sweetheart. You deserve better." 3 days before she died, my mother pulled me close. "Promise me something, Marcus. Don't let anyone diminish what we built together. Not the business, not the values, not the love. You're my greatest achievement." I sobbed into her frail shoulder. "I promise, Mom. I promise." She passed away peacefully 2 days later with me holding her hand. I was destroyed. The funeral was beautiful, hundreds of people whose lives she'd touched. Employees, clients, friends, people she'd mentored. The service celebrated her life, her generosity, her fierce determination. Vanessa wore black Prada and appropriate tears, playing the grieving daughter-in-law convincingly. I was too numb to care. After the service, we gathered at one of my mother's restaurants for the reception. Richard Pemberton, Mom's attorney, was there to read the will as requested. I was standing near the window, staring at nothing, when Vanessa's voice cut through the room. "Everyone, I just want to say something." She stood near the center of the room, commanding attention. "Catherine was a remarkable woman, and Marcus and I are devastated by our loss. But we take comfort knowing she provided for us, specifically, the $5 million life insurance policy she maintained. As Marcus's wife and daughter-in-law, I'll be managing those funds to ensure they're invested wisely for our future." The room went silent. People looked uncomfortable. My mother's best friend, Gloria, actually gasped. I felt like I'd been slapped. My mother had been dead for 3 days, and Vanessa was already staking claims to her money. In front of everyone. Richard Pemberton cleared his throat. "Mrs. Donnelly, perhaps we should discuss this privately." "No need," Vanessa interrupted, smiling. "I'm just being transparent. Catherine would have wanted us to be smart about this money. Marcus is too emotional right now to make financial decisions, so I'll handle it." I found my voice. "Vanessa, this isn't the time." "Of course it is. We need to be practical. Your mother would understand that." She turned to Richard. "When can we access the funds? There's a waiting period for life insurance, right?" "A few weeks." Richard looked at me, then at Vanessa. His expression was unreadable. "Mrs. Donnelly, perhaps you should sit down." I need to review Catherine's estate plan with everyone present. I'd prefer to stand, thank you. Just tell us how to claim the insurance money. Richard opened his briefcase and pulled out documents. Catherine updated her estate plan 3 weeks before her death. The changes were significant. Vanessa waved dismissively. Yes, but the insurance policy, that's straightforward, right? $5 million, beneficiary is Marcus, which means as his wife, I have legal access. Actually, Richard interrupted, the beneficiary is not Marcus. Vanessa's smile faltered. What? 3 weeks ago, Catherine changed the life insurance beneficiary. The $5 million policy now pays directly to the Catherine Donnelly Foundation, a charitable trust established to provide culinary scholarships and small business loans to single parents. The room erupted in whispers. Vanessa's face went white, then red. That's impossible. She wouldn't, Marcus, tell him that's wrong. I stayed silent, watching her unravel. Richard continued calmly. Additionally, Catherine's restaurants, real estate holdings, and investment accounts, valued at approximately $12 million, are held in an irrevocable trust. Marcus is the trustee and beneficiary, but the assets are protected from marital claims. Protected from, Vanessa turned to me, fury replacing shock. You knew about this? I knew my mother was protecting what she built, I said quietly. Protecting it from me? Her voice rose. I'm your wife. A wife who just announced at my mother's funeral that she'd be managing my inheritance. I replied, a wife who couldn't be bothered to visit my dying mother more than 3 times in 4 months. A wife who's standing at my mother's memorial reception talking about accessing insurance money before we've even buried her ashes. Vanessa looked around the room at the disapproving faces. I was just being practical. You were being greedy, Gloria interjected. Catherine saw right through you, honey. We all did. Richard cleared his throat. To be clear, Marcus has full access to the trust funds for living expenses, business operations, and charitable purposes. But Mrs. Vanessa Donnelly has no claim to any of Catherine's estate under the terms of the trust. This is illegal. Vanessa sputtered. You can't exclude a spouse from inheritance. Actually, Richard said, Catherine's estate planning was meticulous and entirely legal. The trust was established before her death with full mental capacity verified by 2 independent physicians. It's ironclad. Vanessa grabbed her purse. Marcus, we need to talk. Privately. Now. I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw what my mother had seen all along. Someone who viewed me as a resource, not a person. Someone who saw my mother's death as a financial opportunity. No, I said. We don't. Excuse me? I said no. You've shown me exactly who you are, Vanessa. My mother was right about you from the beginning. Her expression turned vicious. You self-righteous, your mother was a controlling witch who poisoned you against me. We're married. That money should be ours. That money, I said coldly, is going to help single parents build businesses, just like my mother did after my father died. It's going to send culinary students to school. It's going to do good in the world instead of funding your shopping addiction. How dare you? Get out, I said. You're no longer welcome here. This is your mother's restaurant. No, I corrected. It's my restaurant now. And I'm asking you to leave. Security, alerted by Richard, appeared at the door. Vanessa looked around wildly for support but found none. Every person in that room had loved my mother and seen through Vanessa's performance. She stormed out, shouting threats about lawyers and divorce. The room was silent for a moment. Then Gloria hugged me. Your mother would be so proud of you, Marcus. Richard approached. I'm sorry you had to do that today. Don't be, I said. My mother protected me one last time. She knew exactly what would happen. Richard nodded. She left you something else. He handed me an envelope. She asked me to give you this after the will reading. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a letter in my mother's handwriting, my darling Marcus. If you're reading this, Richard has revealed the truth about the estate planning, and Vanessa has shown her true colors. I'm sorry you had to see it this way, but you needed to understand who you married. The money doesn't matter. What matters is that you now know the truth. Don't waste years on someone who values your bank account more than your heart. You are kind, brilliant, and worthy of real love. Don't settle for less because you're afraid of being alone. Being alone is better than being with someone who diminishes you. The trust will take care of you. Use it to build something meaningful. Maybe you'll find someone who loves you the way you deserve, the way your father loved me. Real, deep, and unconditional. I love you forever, my wonderful son. Make me proud. Mom. I folded the letter carefully, tears streaming down my face. Around me, people who loved my mother and cared about me offered comfort, support, and shared memories. Vanessa called 7 times that night. I blocked her number. She filed for divorce a week later, demanding half of everything. Her lawyer backed off quickly when Richard presented the trust documents and pointed out that Vanessa's behavior at the funeral, documented by multiple witnesses, demonstrated exactly why Catherine had protected the assets. The divorce was finalized in 4 months. Vanessa got nothing except what she brought into the marriage, which was almost nothing. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she told people I hid money from her and that my mother manipulated the inheritance. Nobody who knew my mother believed it. 6 months after Mom's death, I held the first Catherine Donnelly Foundation scholarship ceremony. We awarded $250,000 in culinary scholarships to 20 single parents pursuing food service careers. One recipient, a 32-year-old single mother named Angela, approached me afterward with tears in her eyes. "Your mother's story inspired me to go back to school. This scholarship means my daughter will see me graduate. Thank you." That's when I understood what my mother had done. She hadn't just protected me from Vanessa, she created a legacy that would help hundreds of people build the kind of life she built for us. The restaurants are thriving under my leadership. I've expanded the foundation's reach. I work hard, live modestly, and try to honor my mother's values every day. I'm not dating anyone. Maybe someday I'll find someone who loves me for who I am, not what I have. But I'm okay being alone for now. Last week, I visited my mother's grave. I told her about the foundation, about the scholarships, about finally being free from Vanessa. "You were right, Mom," I said to the headstone. "About everything. Thank you for protecting me. Thank you for teaching me what real love looks like. I miss you every day." The wind rustled through the trees, and I swear I felt her presence, proud, loving, and still watching over me. My name is Marcus Donnelly. I'm 35 years old. My mother left me $12 million in a protected trust and a $5 million insurance policy that's changing lives. My ex-wife got nothing and deserved exactly that. And I've never been more grateful for my mother's wisdom.